Well, that game was something. That was definitely one of the weirder USC games I've ever seen. If you've watched any of the NFL preseason, this game looked exactly like that. So much rotation, no rhythm at all, and I'm not really sure what to take out of this game, to be completely honest, other than Zachariah Branch is already must-see TV. So in today's video, we'll really dive into the nuts and bolts of this game. I'll tell you who stood out, who disappointed, and unfortunately we do have to ask some questions about the USC defense. All of that and more coming up next. What's up guys, my name is Gabe and welcome to the Trojan Blade. Before we do get into it today, I do want to say thank you to all our new gold tier patrons. You guys went crazy this weekend and it honestly helps me out so much and allows me to do this full time. So big shout out to Deacon, Kobe, Lindsay, Joseph, Stevie, and John for all joining the Patreon. If you guys are interested, the link is in the description. But having said all that, let's get into this. Alright, so as always, let's start with the offense here. So in my view, we could look at this in a few different ways, but I'm choosing just to look at this through the lens of a preseason game, because that is the only way I can truly justify the offensive line rotation. I just don't understand it really. You have an all Pac-12 guard in Jarrett Kingston on the bench for a guy in Gino Quinones who in my humble opinion does not have anywhere near the experience or skill that Kingston has. And guys, it honestly can take a while for the offensive line to develop chemistry. Every game is valuable, every rep is valuable. This truly just feels like a wasted opportunity to me. And I mean, it wasn't working. You can tell Caleb was getting very frustrated with the offensive line. There's a reason teams don't rotate offensive linemen usually. You might not think it, but it's a rhythm position for sure. It really is. Coming in and out helps nobody. So I'm really giving all the offensive linemen who played a pass here. The coaching staff honestly just made this so much harder on everybody. I mean, the running game never got going. Caleb was under pressure a lot of the time. That big sack on 3rd and 14 at the end of the first half, there was a big miscommunication between Kingston and Tarquin. And if you guys remember, that was one of my G's keys in the preview, offensive line communication. It was really made difficult by the coaching staff in this game. I mean, it wasn't all bad on the line though. Monheim and Dietich I thought were fantastic, but overall just an extremely frustrating approach. And guys, I feel like we kind of just forget how insane Caleb Williams is. By his own insane standards, he didn't even play well, and he still threw for 278 and 4 scores with no turnovers. It's truly a remarkable level that he plays at, and can we just talk about that throw to Taj Washington? My goodness. He drops the snap, picks it up, looking straight into the sun and somehow completely flat-footed and falling backwards, launches an absolute rocket that's on the money to Taj Washington. What a ridiculously awesome play. Not many humans on the planet could make that throw. But overall, I would describe it as a steady performance from Caleb. Wasn't his best by any means, but he didn't have a lot of help out there either. I was also very impressed by Austin Jones. I thought he was really decisive in this one. I will say though, the pass blocking issues are still there for him. You saw Marshawn Lloyd in Pass Pro absolutely pancake a guy, so it's clear Austin still doesn't have that part of his game figured out. And I said it on Twitter, but this team legitimately has 15 weapons. I mean, Raleigh Brown didn't even make an impact until the late 4th quarter, which is nuts. This offense is so stacked, it's really ridiculous. But honestly, this game was so weird, especially on the offensive side. I almost don't want to dive in too deep. I mean, it was just so strange. It felt like Lincoln called an incredibly basic game as well, like he's trying to not show anything. Again, much like the NFL preseason. But despite that, I do have a few standout performers I'd like to single out here before we move on to the defense. First, Elijah Page. He came in for 8 snaps and he looked very good. It's a shame he didn't get more run out there. Of all the guys to not put in early in this one. And now let's talk about the human highlight reel himself, Zachariah Branch. My God, what a player. What a debut. Over 200 all-purpose yards, a receiving touchdown, and a kickoff return for a score as well. It seems like every time he touches the ball, magic happens. Normally, I hate when people compare anyone to Reggie Bush. I really do. But man, personally, I could not help but think about number 5 out there when I saw him making cuts at full speed and not losing any juice at all. And can we talk about that kickoff return? The little hezzy at the top and just speed explosion mixed in with incredible vision. I mean, just wow. What else can I say at this point? That was just pure joy being able to see that. And I feel like that really helped the mood coming out of this game. Without Zachariah, I don't know what the tone is coming out of this game, but I know it could be a lot worse than what it is today. So big shouts to Zachariah. I'm so excited to see what he can put together for the rest of the year. All right, now let's head over to the USC defense. And first, let me just talk about where my head was at during the course of the game. At the end of the first half, I was livid. The blown coverage at the end of the half was so reminiscent of last year, but by the end of the game, and especially now that I've had a chance to look at things, I feel very good about one part of our defense and not great about another. So let's start with the positives first. Of course, it's the personnel. I mean, we look so much bigger, so much faster, so much more stout, especially along that defensive line. I came away extremely impressed with Bear Alexander and Anthony Lucas. Those are two dudes up front. Bear had a few reps where you're just like, whoa, that's very different from what we've had over the last decade plus. I really thought Anthony Lucas as a pass rusher was very dynamic, very explosive, very fast hands. He did get eaten up a bit in the run game from time to time, but it's first game of the year, I'm not going to overreact to that. And now, was it perfect along the defensive line? No. Solomon Byrd is an absolute liability in run defense. There were some containment issues, but man, for week 0, first game of the year, I was very impressed by what I saw from those guys. Now let's talk linebackers. Mason Cobb is who we thought he was. We all knew he wasn't the fastest guy in the world, but man, does he see the game at a high level. He understands what he's seeing, and when he goes, he goes. I loved his aggression, particularly on that goal line play where he shot in and got the TFL. I loved most of what I saw from him. Tackett Curtis, he's a young guy. He looked like a freshman out there. These reps were invaluable for him though. He did get lost in coverage a few times, and he was graded as the team's worst tackler by PFF. But hey, that guy has the motor, he has the tools, he'll be fine. And guys, I said it last year and took a surprising amount of grief for it, but Eric Gentry is the most important player on the USC defense. Everything changed when he got in there. He completely changes the picture that the opposing quarterback is looking at. The defense was not looking good early on in this game. You put Eric in and we start shutting them down. Alicia and Michael over at Raina Troy made a great point on their CarCast, bringing up the fact that last year when Eric left the defense, everything fell apart. Guys, these things aren't coincidences. He has to be out there on the field. And there actually is a scheme change I'd like to see involving Eric, but we'll get to that more in a bit. I have not gotten my hands on the All-22 as of yet, so I'm not fully confident commenting on the secondary's performance, although I was very impressed by Christian Roland Wallace in his limited reps. That guy needs to be out there on the field for me personally. I thought Bryson Shaw had a solid performance, and unless it's a health thing, why in the world did Zion Branch play as little as he did? I don't get that at all. Only 6 defensive snaps is not what I was wanting or expecting. But overall with the personnel, just way better than last year. The ceiling on this defense is through the roof, especially in that front 7. I came away extremely optimistic and impressed with those guys. But that leads us to the big negative here, and that is Alex Grinch. I am not one to complain about defensive play calling. I'm not a coach, I didn't play defense. I'm not a defensive expert by any means. I don't think I've ever actually complained about it here on the channel, but when it's so painfully obvious, I do have to say something. 3rd and 22 against a very mobile quarterback, and you rush 5 and have Mason Cobb come down to man up the running back, so 6 guys pretty much all along the line of scrimmage. And very predictably, Cordero runs for the first down. Unacceptable, can't happen. And look, I get Grinch's identity is aggression, but come on man, you've got to know better than that. A safer call there, and San Jose does not score on that drive, and man do we feel a hell of a lot better about the defense coming out of this one. The second thing I have an issue with is that Grinch is overcomplicating things. Jeff Schwartz on Twitter was highlighting this, but Grinch keeps dialing up all of these complex pressures that seem to do a lot more harm than good. Because you see it on the plays where we just rush 4 and let our guys go to work, we have a lot of success on those plays. Look, this isn't Washington State. No offense to our friends up there on the Palouse, but you don't have to scheme guys open with crazy over-the-top calls. We have the horses. We have the 4 and 5 stars up front. Let them work. Don't overcomplicate things. That exact same overcomplication led to a big coverage bust at the end of the first half. It's not that hard, guys. Dial back the aggression, dial back the over-scheming, but unfortunately Grinch hasn't really given us a true reason to believe he'll do either of those things. So until we're proven otherwise, things like this should be expected to keep happening. Especially with all the mobile quarterbacks on USC's schedule, that has me a little worried. I also think he needs to adjust his base scheme to match the personnel we have. Let's take that nickel off the field and put in a 3rd linebacker. A traditional 4-3 would fit this group a lot better in my opinion. Let Cobb, Tackett, and Gentry all be out there together the majority of the time. I really think that could work wonders. So overall for the defense, honestly, I'd give them a C grade. I mean, I don't think we saw anything that would make us feel like the defense is trash. And on the flip side, they also didn't put a ton of confidence into us. So yeah, C for me. Now, normally I'd go a lot more in depth with more players, but this was just the most bizarre game. I don't want to make any bold assumptions with this little amount of data. So in the future, these will be longer, more in depth. But for now, let's move to the player of the game. Of course, this one's very easy. It's Zachariah Branch. What an outstanding debut performance. We all knew he was special, right? But did any of you expect that? I wasn't ready for it. It takes a big time day to outshine Caleb Williams, but somehow the true freshman managed to pull it off. All right, guys, so I do want to hear from you. Tell me all your thoughts about this game, offense, defense, special teams, anything you have. And of course, if you did happen to enjoy this video, please do leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you're anything like Deacon, Kobe, Lindsay, Joseph, Stevie, or John, and you want to help support the channel in an even bigger way, make sure you head over to my Patreon and consider signing up for only $1 a month. Thank you guys so much for all your support. You're all awesome, and as always, take care and fight on.